Kim and Kanye.
Talk about podcasts.
Okay.
But do we have to be looking at the camera? See, I think now I have to look.
Go.
Like, move over a little.
We're like here?
Yeah. Okay, better.
Alright, let's just intertwine our legs.
And
we're ready.
And scene. Oh.
We can talk about podcasts, but what podcasts were you? You were just talking about one that I'm new to. Smart List. What's the premise of it? It doesn't have a premise.
Yeah, they just bring a different guest on. The three of them host. One of them every week. One of them brings in a guest, unbeknownst to the other two.
But that's a premise. That's a really good premise. We should think about that.
I thought about that too, just because I've been listening to it so much.
It's like formatting. You know?
Yeah. Like, do we want to ever have guests?
Well, I mean, I think you are sufficiently into yourself, and I am also into you. So.
Great. Oh, I love the way that it was like ... Ooh, you're gonna get this right.
No, I would have guests. I think
not all the time.
Yeah, but I think the problem with having guests is, and this is from years of working in media. I don't know if you know. You end up having to cater to whatever it is that they want to bring to the show, and like I'm not here to promote my articles on the Daily Beast, for instance, or my Medium page, or my YouTube channel. No, but I think even like very sincerely, when you like a guest, the only reason they will then come on is because they have this thing to promote. Yeah. And I think for that reason, I wouldn't want to base it on stare. Well, no, I wanted to make sure. I would like to listen to you, but I'm just so transfixed by my own. No, I wanted to make sure that this wasn't in the shot. Yeah, no, nothing.
No table.
Nothing on the table is in the shot. But,
okay.
I do like the idea of having like an ensemble. Like they're friends, but they're kind of an ensemble because their friendship like lends to each person having a role and an archetype. That I find cool. And so if there were people within the family who get to be on and it's like
it's
a privilege. And it's a cameo. I like that idea a lot. And I think it kind of blends more naturally with like talking about something because you would have talked about it with your friends.
Would you ever have a cameo with Anwar?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course.
Would you try to see if you could bait us into fighting over you?
Yeah, of course. That's the.
Like, would that be the entire reason for?
I mean, I would want to feel special in that way. Yeah. And you're the only two I do a podcast with.
Yeah.
So it's really just up to you two, who's going to be funnier that day.
Right. Yeah.
Which I feel like it puts a lot of pressure on you. That puts a ton of pressure on you.
Because he's super funny.
No, he's funny, but he also knows how to make me laugh. Like you do too.
Right.
I crack up a lot when you talk. So it's like, but it's just like there's really like simple stuff.
But are you gonna? Is today the day you're gonna let yourself down, Alec?
Yeah, exactly. Like.
Okay, I'm gonna put that in my back pocket.
To your own expectations.
Or down. Are you gonna live down? Wait, let's talk about Kim and
Let's talk about podcast things. So Smart List is a good premise. We should think about having a format. And moving on into Kim and Kanye, I hear, are filing for divorce.
Yes.
And I want
Which I've heard before. Let me just say this. This is an ongoing thing that's been happening for over a year.
So talk about that. Like, has it been already underway and they're just kind of like, because of their media machine, preparing people for this eventual announcement that came out?
Because like, they're not sure we can take it?
I mean, I don't know how that whole thing works. I know that Kris Jenner is very good at something.
Yes.
In terms of public relations, and this has something to do with it, right? Like, they've been kind of steady.
Wait, we don't think they're happy together, right? Look, just all headlines aside, there's no possible way this marriage is functioning at this point.
I don't think so. I think at first and for years, and I think this is my bias, but I think people who have children and who have, multiple children, because they had 3.
Yeah.
Right? And not like they're no spring chickens, right?
No.
So they you have to really dedicate to having children at that phase of your life. And did they use a surrogate with the last child?
They would certainly not publicize that.
I feel like they that was the last child was surrogate.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, no, I think she carried North and Saint, and then the last child is Chicago, I believe. I don't know. I wish I knew.
Are you sure it's not a Chicago street name?
No, it's Chicago.
It is just straight up Chicago.
Let's use the internet. We have it at our disposal. So let's look up what Kanye West and Kim Kardashian's children's. Oh, I almost searched Kanye West and Michael Jackson, which is an interesting discussion in and of
Wow,
itself.
that's quite Freudian and some.
Okay, so Saint, Chicago, and Psalm, born via surrogate. Oh no, Chicago also was born via surrogate. So okay. Wait, 3 more children together via surrogate is the thing. So North is the child that they had together in their own bodies. That's so, I don't know, I feel like archaic saying, like even making that distinction, like, oh wow, like that's probably a thing now where it's just regular celebrity culture to buy a human body.
Well, as you know, I mean, we all know Beyonce fell pregnant.
Wait, let's get on the bad side of a lot of Beyonce fans. Tell me about that rumor.
Okay, first of all, I am not saying this is true.
You're like, first of all, don't
in any way, this is not something I think, but certainly there was a video clip of Beyonce on a talk show coming to sit down in a chair.
And the fold over. The
stomach deflated and that's what it...
Right.
But I would never say that.
And correct me if I'm wrong here, and also let me know how I'm being sexist, because I already know this is a sexist thing to like get into. From what I understand from a friend of mine who just had twins this year.
Is it analog?
No.
I was gonna say, well, you can never stop throwing them in my face.
Just shoot someone through. It's called a geriatric pregnancy.
It is, and I know this because I remember watching Halle Berry after she got pregnant at 46.
Yeah.
And she was on some show. It was Ellen DeGeneres. She was like, "Oh, you got a baby at 46," and she was like, "Yeah, it's really old." And she was like, "You weren't old." And she goes, "They literally call it a geriatric pregnancy."
Right?
Yeah.
And so, I imagine that with that knowledge and with all the resources that a Beyonce or Kim Kardashian have at their disposal, they're trying to reduce risk as much as possible, right?
I think in the case of Kim Kardashian, well, one, yes, there is part of this is, I mean, no, not a spring chicken, so there's that, but also there's some body preservation going on too.
Yeah, absolutely. But I wonder too, like when I think about Kim in terms of body preservation, I'm like, but she's already like well underway into that process. Like what would pregnancy...
Well, she carried that first kid and remembered like all the pictures of her afterwards, and she talked very, she was very public about like, my body did not bounce back. It took me a long time. And she gained a lot of weight. Like, some people gain a ton of weight, some people don't.
Right.
And so like, and pregnancy is fucking duress.
Yeah, it is.
There's a bunch of shit that happens to your skin.
Yeah.
There's like these like, and also
organ placement changes.
There's
hormone changes.
Yeah. And there's literal like, a lot of these celebrities, so that they can schedule it. This is a real thing. So they can organize their time because they're so busy. They schedule a C-section. So then there's that too. So there's like shit. That's like a whole thing to consider. Like it's no fucking joke.
So I think because of that factor, that they had children, that she put her body under stress, that he is a person who is, I think we understand him to be unstable. we understand him to be unstable. Like, I don't want to like stigmatize what's happening with his mental health, but he's unstable, and I think even he recognizes it, and I think how he addresses it is probably the variable here, like how he chooses to embrace it or not. But like, because
he is alternately, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I was doing a lot of that.
No, that's your thing.
He he alternately like, I want to say concedes, because I hate the idea that like we have to admit things about it. Like the admission isn't. But like when other people, and this family has done that, have put out public statements about his bipolarism, he has alternately sort of in statements that I know he wasn't even in the room for, because I can tell by reading them, said yes, this is a real thing, and then alternately gotten on Twitter and been like, this isn't real, this isn't, exactly.
And that's the race riot element of it. Where, and I was just talking about this the other day, because I had a doctor's appointment yesterday, and let's make a show about you. Let's start with me. Start with me, go build from there. But the guy who's my doctor, I have like a primary care facility, but they have like different satellite offices, and the person who I saw yesterday was like the first time me seeing that doctor, and his name, me looking him up, it seemed Persian, and I was like, okay, like, first of all, he super rushed me, and like,
we call it Orion now, I think, right?
Is that, well, yeah, is it?
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, I guess we're in the new world now. It's like, did I just call
Japan, not Nippon? I mean,
did I just call the equivalent of Oriental?
You did not, but most, actually in LA, I know there's plenty of people that identify as Persian, so.
Right. I thought that, but I mean, I wanted to consult like the resident Asian.
Keep that in.
Expert.
Keep that in.
The Asian
because
expert. The Asian expert.
Yeah. I love that it's documented now.
Sign a file, that's what we'll call you. So yeah, I felt like he rushed me, and I felt like I'm already really cautious.
Oh, he rushed you? Really?
Yeah, like you're supposed to do a bunch of things for an annual physical, including like touch me in a way I haven't been touched. You know?
Right, like lovingly.
Yeah.
Like caressingly.
Like take your time.
Right, yeah. Like ask. Get consent. Yeah, right, yeah.
But yeah, I felt like he rushed me, and
I
hate that shit. And he had like what I thought of as a Persian name, and I was like, oh well, they're white here, so I'm just gonna like treat him like a white doctor, like a standard white doctor who's ignoring me, who doesn't care how I feel.
Right.
And I think when I thought about the Kardashians in that framework, I was like, okay, although Kanye West is, like you said, admittedly erratic or struggles with some aspects of his mental health management, they also manipulate that. Like,
oh, for sure.
And I think his ultimate value, and the thing that people don't talk about enough in the scope of him being, unstable, erratic, is that he is much more famous than they are. Like he has more of an artistic catalog. He has more.
He's famous in a different way, though.
He is. Okay, I think
because if we're thinking of fame as just meaning like people recognizing your name or the chances that you'll be accosted in public, there's a similar level. He's famous for something substantive, right? Right. So yeah.
Like I think the thing that they are famous for could change drastically. Like they are famous for visibility.
They're famous for being famous.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that is a volatile factor in that. Like whereas music, his music has already stood the test of time. And that in and of itself is like just puts him in another stratosphere. Yeah. And I think they understand that. They understand that value, and they manipulate it. Like they use it to their advantage, which makes me wonder, and I think you might have thoughts on this, like who will remain famous longer, or who will like waste their fame out of those two? Who do you think is going to stay famous longer?
It's funny because I have never thought of it this way, but it's like, I think they both will have a dwindling sort of fame, right? Because the Kardashian show went off the air.
Right.
Which was a lot of their, I don't even want to call it cachet. That is not the word, but you know what I mean. Like,
no, it is. I mean, it is. It's like that's what gave them mystique. Somehow, it's like their
or their constant demystification, depending on how you think of it, reality TV. Mm-hmm. But then there's like a shift in, but like this is going to sound so awful, but I dropped out at My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. I know that's a long time ago, but I did drop off then. And so I'm not up on like what he's doing after that, but I do know he has a very legit body of shit that people will continue to value.
I can speak to that a little bit.
Okay.
I dropped out personally at My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. Yeah. But like, let's call that, someone I read online commented like that's his Purple Rain, right? Like that's his magnum opus.
That's such a good comparison too, because it really was. Because everyone was blown away by that on every level.
Yes. And with Yeezus is a good album.
And I loved when Skinhead Black Skinhead came out. I loved it. Like I remember watching him perform that on SNL and being like, holy fuck.
Yeah, and The Life of Pablo, like a lesser album, but that what I think he's been great at doing is genre shifting, like taking his style and melding it to what happens currently. Yeah. And that is a thing that not many artists have and preserve, and that I think he's going to continue to do, honestly. I think he has just a great ear for, I guess, the currency of music. Like,
but is he continuing to do that? Like, is he still... because I'm not engaging as much with what he's doing, but like, I don't think in the same way that like, I just don't care who you, like, as much as, like, his early, he was very, like, publicly, like, recognizing, I am an artist, I am making art, and that was a thing that, like it could be, like, protest too much, but it wasn't. He was, like, doing, like, all kinds of stuff, and being vulnerable in ways, and being, and literally in his lyrics talking about vulnerability, and, like, all this stuff that, like, I don't know that person is still there. Well, and I don't mean like not there. I mean, I don't know that person. I mean, look, we have to remember it was a while before Trump, even when he started wearing Confederate flags.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, this thing
was at least like 2 years before that.
It's almost like this, like in a way, his. I don't know how anyone's mental illness manifests, and as someone who deals with certain aspects of that, I certainly don't want to stigmatize anyone for what that publicly looks like, but it felt very much like there was this weird period between the extreme version of it that we got to and the old Kanye that we knew, where it felt like it was just almost performance art, provocation.
Absolutely.
And I didn't understand the use of it. And I know people always cite his mother's death as sort of this like turning point. Right. But I do feel like he's not surrounded by people that fucking love him. Like I feel like he needs some like people around him who are not Kardashians who love him.
So I'll push back on that a little bit. Although I think there is credence to that theory that there aren't people who love him in the way that I believe Black people want.
A deeply earnest Black love.
Yeah. And I think deeply earnest Black love, that's important, because deeply earnest Black love will be like, hey, you fucking up. Like, I can't fuck with you on this type of shit. But like having talked to an artist who's really close to him and who has like, long-standing connections, both like professionally and creatively with him, the conversation I had with that artist showed me that like, no, he actually does have people in his sphere who are like, I don't agree with you, but he himself is such a strong and bold personality. He was like, yeah, it's okay if you don't fuck with me. Like John Legend, it's all right. Like, we'll be brothers, and you're my brother that I don't fuck with for right now, or you don't fuck with me, and I understand that. Or with Jay-Z, where Jay-Z has this pattern and tendency of trying to like big bro a lot of people. Like he tries to big bro Drake and tries to big bro Kanye, and Kanye and Drake both are like, yeah, but don't condescend me. Like there are things that I do better than you do, and that I understand in a different way than you do. And like you're a billionaire, cool. Like that's cool too, but you fuck up. And I think there are enough people around him that he just actively resists. Like Pusha T has even alluded to that and been like, yeah, like he was trying to do this and these things with these albums, and like I kind of thought he was basically in a manic state.
Yeah.
And I didn't fuck with some of the decisions, but like that's my brother. And that is a deeply earnest black love too.
Yeah.
And it's not gonna always result in Kanye then being palatable to us, especially as black people. Like he's not focused on being palatable. And I think because he took the performance stuff so far in the direction of provocation, maybe he has lost a bit of himself. Like he's lost
his thing?
He's lost a bit of himself, but I think maybe part of his artistic mission, and this is me getting very meta with it, was to lose the self. Like, and he's serving this purpose of like, but what is the maximum impact of the art?
It's one thing to try to lose the self in this kind of like, almost baptizing yourself in the art, becoming so consumed by the art. It's another thing to lose the self and lose the soul and become like a fucking acolyte of Donald Trump. Those are very different things to me.
Yeah. But what is Donald Trump too, though? Like, I mean, before what he symbolized in the political arena, and I always talk about this in relation to rappers specifically, it was like, he is like the ego performance, like, and rappers and hip hop really admires that. Like, and it's weird when you put it in the context of like the black self in America, like, we've never been able to affirm a self. And Donald Trump is like the antithesis, right? Like he's just the affirmation of self. Yeah. And so
that's all he exists as. I mean, he's a shell of a fucking human.
Yeah. He has no moral compass. He has no mooring.
He's just an id. He's like a sentient id.
Yeah, exactly that. You copied that from Onwards last, like, my podcast with Onward. He said that, so I'm just.
Did he really?
Yeah, he said basically
about Donald Trump.
Yeah, like essentially.
I'm sorry. From the one you're doing with him now. I'm being serious.
We put ours out first, though, so it's like it's okay.
From the one you're doing with him now, he said that.
Yeah, but in a different context. No, it's cool.
I think I need you to leave. No, I'm just kidding. I'm gonna get some wine because in theory we're still doing our pre-taping. Can I get you some more wine, or what do you? Okay.
And I'm gonna.
We never even got to his podcast. Whether Kanye's gonna do a podcast or not.
Yeah, we can just skip that.
I'm enjoying this wine. It's
I like it. It's really smooth. I think this is gonna get me ready for pot. I'm ready.
The problem is that we're so serious. We go from being laughing to start talking in these deep ways.
That's the exact thing that we're supposed to. Have you heard the other podcast I do? Like, come on. That's the only thing. It's like we have to modulate between extra serious at all times and like theoretical and to completely silly shit. So I'm gonna sleep. Okay. I don't believe that.
I'm sorry, I just love slipping. It's like, it's so industry. Sorry, tell me to get so inside baseball. Go ahead. And you're barely in frame.
Hey, guess what? Someone has to keep the show going. I'm director, producer, host, one might say.
Wow. Wow.
But yeah, I think the question I was really asking you that you refused to answer is who's going to waste their fame first, fastest, most surprisingly, most tragically.
He will waste his fame first in the sense that he will, because I think that there is a machine behind the Kardashians that is Kris Kardashian, and she is navigating everything very savvily all the time, and that's all she cares about. Whereas I think he will waste his fame in the sense of like his like contemporary fame, but he'll still rest on this beautiful stuff that he's made. So they will become very different kinds of fame.
Hard disagree here. I think if we are talking about what the currency of fame is, they are like the Bitcoin of fame. Like they're very volatile, very new on the scene. Agreed. Like he's like the gold standard. Like music fame, it's like fucking Mozart. baby. Like, like we still talk about both.
But
sides.
he's made a mockery of his fame in recent years.
How about this? Who's the most famous socialite from 1789?
Okay.
Right? Like who's the most famous socialite from 1990?
Okay, but are you not asking about squandering their fame in the foreseeable future?
Okay, for even in the foreseeable future, how do you the one thing that has kept him in the spotlight is that his fans love his music.
Yeah.
So they don't actually give a fuck about his Twitter feed or anything like that. I mean, the diehards probably do, but the people who just hear him on Spotify or like know he has something and like it, they don't care what he's doing on a day-to-day basis in the way that like people who follow celebrity culture.
Right.
Now, Kim, on the other hand, what happens if Instagram stops existing?
Yeah, you're right. And then their show doesn't exist, and then
It's all very.
like, what's her next step?
She's gonna act in the movie,
No.
right?
Well, and ostensibly she finishes law school.
Yeah.
That's her thing. That's what she's saying she's doing.
Yeah.
She's really enrolled in law classes.
I mean, sure.
Like James Franco was like enrolled in NYU and three other places and was literally sleeping and drooling on a desk.
Right, exactly.
So yeah, no, I
I have stories about him. He was in film school with Shaka. And
oh, tell.
yeah, I mean, I don't want to. There's an NDA probably involved in this. Not based on Shaka's interaction, but I think that was the time where people identified James Franco as potentially manipulative, abusive.
Yeah.
Especially to keep that whole train going of like the ultimate artist and like I can do everything and anything. And from what I know, based on those stories, he was kind of like cribbing people's stuff and glomming it onto his ideas, and we're like, oh yeah, we'll do this thing, and everybody just like show up at my house and we're gonna shoot this film, and it's gonna be about like, you know, my early childhood like formative sexual experiences, and like, yeah, we're just gonna roll, like just roll it. Everybody come in and just like put on these robes, take off your clothes, like that kind of weird.
Yeah.
And he had like, you know, a lot of clout at that moment, right? He was like super relevant, but I don't know how much of that actually ended up being in a film, or you know, and then the films that he did shoot were universally seen as like weird and disjointed and like not at all adding to.
I never watched Howl.
Don't.
There's no reason to.
Yeah, it's okay. You don't have to. So I'm gonna